Hey traders, welcome back to the FX YouTube channel. Hope everyone is doing good today. It's been a while since I posted a video. I had some issues outside of trading that completely made me lose all motivation to post videos. And unfortunately, it also affected my trading as well. Things are a little better now, especially with my trading. But I don't plan to consistently post regular videos for the time being, at least. Anyways, going back to the content, today I'll try to keep it short and just do a top down of Dixie and EU. So starting with the fundamentals, most of the big news that we had recently is already passed, like the CPI, the interest rates, that sort of thing. So it should be relatively quiet this week, but we do have some big events that we need to look for, especially on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, if you look, we have PMI for most of the Eurozone on Wednesday. We also have PMI for the UK, which could impact the dollar and impact the way price action is moving. But we also have PMI for the US as well. So this will obviously have an impact on price action at that time. And then on Thursday, we have FOMC meeting minutes. And if I recall correctly, this should just be a recap of what's already known. But the thing is, it could have an impact if it solidifies the fact that there may be some easing to the US monetary policy moving forward. So keep an eye on that as well. So let's move to Dixie, starting with the monthly time frame. You can clearly see that something is different in this picture. For the last 2 years, we've been mainly printing bullish candles. We had, one noticeable bearish candle, but it's nothing compared to the bearish candle that we're printing this month. I don't expect it to stay this way though. If we're really starting to see a higher time frame shift, then it would make more sense for the price to pull back and mitigate before continuation to the downside. It should become a little clearer as I go down into the lower time frames. So on the weekly, you can see that the shift is a little more visible. We had that massive bearish candle the week before last. Ultimately, it came down into weekly demand. This last week's candle pushed down a little lower, mitigating further into demand, before ending the week with a bullish candle. So when I look at this, I'm starting to think we could have some consolidation in this area. But ultimately, it would make more sense for price to pull back and retest supply. Whether that happens this week or in the future, we'll just have to wait and see. And one more thing I'm noticing when I look at the weekly, if you look at the highs, you can see that the institutions have done this manipulation to break the range that it was in, and thereafter that we had a massive reaction and push to the downside, but then after that all you see is mitigation before pushing down lower, more mitigation, and then that huge break to the downside. So it does look like potentially we could be seeing the start of something bigger. But like I said before, it would make more sense if we had a pullback to retest and mitigate the supply zone before pushing down further. And this weekly supply zone actually represents fair value gap, as well as the breaker block that we have right here as well. If we move to the daily, so on the daily you can see that the mitigation of the highs is much clear on the daily time frame, as well as a supply chain being formed and respected. In terms of areas that I'd like to see price come back to, I like this daily supply level that I have here. It also coincides with the weekly fair value gap, the breaker block as well. So this could be a area that I'll be watching at least for the price to come back to before pushing further to the downside, assuming that's what price wants to do. There's also a strong change of hands in this area as well. But at the same time, I don't rule out the extreme. But when I look at this, I'm not sure price needs to go back that far. But then again, if you look in the past, we've often seen crazy manipulation before real big reversals, significant reversals happen, which can even liquidate the current highs that have already been printed. So let's move down to the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, what you can see is we already had a manipulation of the lows. So we started to see some structure being created, then manipulation of that entire range, and then after that a huge impulsive move to the upside, pullback, mitigating demand, and then pushing up, again mitigating demand, pushing even higher, coming back to mitigate demand, and then pushing away from that once again. You can see that we do have a demand chain forming as well. And as I said before, we could see some consolidation in this area. Or potentially the price could just push up from here, as I do expect price to come back and retest supply before pushing further downside, if that's what price wants to do. In terms of targets, I would like to see price come to this supply range. It would be better if price came to the supply zone, but I'll be looking for shifts anywhere within this supply range. The supply range is actually the daily supply zone, but we also do have the fair value gap up here, which coincides with the 4-hour supply zone. So potentially this zone, the 4-hour supply zone, could make more sense, but like I said, anything within this 4-hour supply range, I'll look for shifts, and if I see that shift, I'll start to enter more swing type trades where I would expect them to go a little further and potentially as low as breaking these lows. In terms of bias, short term I'm bullish because I do want to see price come back and mitigate supply. But long term, I'm thinking we could be seeing a bigger bearish shift. Now if we go to EU, starting with the monthly time frame, it's quite consistent with what we saw in Dixie. Last month we printed a bullish, somewhat indecisive candle, but then we had that continuation this month which is breaking a lot of supply levels on this push up. So if this is a bigger pullback or reversal, I would like to see some of this inefficiency cleared before continuing to the upside. If we go to the weekly time frame, you can see the areas of liquidity that's been taken a little clearer on this time frame. We tapped into the weekly supply zone and ended up with a bearish weekly candle. But at one point or another, it would make sense that price came back to clear some of this imbalance before pushing further to the upside, assuming we are seeing a bigger shift. You also notice on the weekly that it's really the first time that in a very, very long time that we've had so much bullish structure created and continuing for nearly 2 years now. So ever since here, it's just been more or less bearish, with bearish continuation, except for this candle where we did come up and push to supply and actually broke it. Didn't close above it, but we did break the supply level, but then after it came right back down. Who knows, same thing could happen here. But thinking about the fundamentals, it could also make sense for a bigger reversal to happen. As I mentioned before, we're starting to see signs of monetary policy easing for the dollar. The inflation results are giving signs that maybe they don't need to continue the interest rate hikes like they have been. So the next one could be 50 base points instead of 75, and then they could go lower after that. But at the same time, on the euro side, it looks like they're continuing to strengthen its monetary policy. And as you guys know, the interest rates actually control the strength of the currencies more than anything. So if the dollar, the interest rates for the dollar is starting to weaken, while the euro continues to stay at pace at where it's at or become even stronger, then it would make sense that the euro starts to become stronger than the dollar, and we start to see a bigger shift or reversal in EU. So let's go down to the daily. For the daily, the main thing I'm looking at right now is the liquidation that we saw pushing down, pushing up into daily supply. Sorry, for a second I was getting confused with Dixie. So yeah, the liquidation that we saw on this candle that pushed into daily supply, and then after that the subsequent mitigation and pushing to the downside thereafter. It really looks like we may just start pushing down from here. We could get one more pullback and mitigate supply before pushing down as well. And assuming price does push down, I'm targeting the first daily demand level. Why this level? Well, first of all, it's the last daily demand that was created. It looks like a strong demand area after that initial push to the upside. It's also acting as a reaction or a flip zone after breaking this high. and you can clearly see a strong shift of hands before pushing higher and breaking more structure to the upside. Yes, it could go down lower, but for me this is more like a minimum level that I'm hoping price comes back to mitigate. If we go to the 4-hour time frame, so one of the most obvious things that you can see right off the bat is we do have that supply chain forming. Each test of supply ends with the aggressive push to the downside. The tests of supply are starting to become more corrective, while the pushes down are more impulsive. So there's more and more evidence that we may see this pullback to retest demand sooner than later. And one other thing that you'll notice is euro is stronger than dollar. After we had that aggressive manipulation to the upside, it came right back down with a very impulsive move to the downside. You can see all these subsequent pushes to the downside hasn't broken that candle yet, but if we look on Dixie, this is a coinciding manipulated move which created that up candle here. We've already broken it, and it looks like the next push up will probably break it as well. So that gives even more strength to the idea that the euro is starting to get stronger, and long term we could see a bigger pullback or reversal. But as of right now, regardless, I would like to see price start to push down. As I said with Dixie, it could consolidate in this area first, but I wouldn't be surprised if it started pushing down early this coming week. And if it wants to mitigate supply, you can see the last supply levels right here. With the last bullish candle, it doesn't really have that far to go to mitigate the supply, at least the bottom of it, before it may start reversing and coming down. So as for targets, on EU we have this demand zone that was created in the middle of the zone. It's clearly a reaction of something on the left, so we broke this high here, and that was the reaction that was created, but it's just a reaction. I mean, for me it's not a strong zone where there was a lot of money switching hands, like something like down here or here. That's why I think that I don't think this demand will hold. I think price will come to it, react off of it, may have a pullback, but ultimately push down and break through it and come lower into one of these stronger zones. And that's why I'm looking at this level as more of a minimum level for price to come mitigate before reversing. So this is the entire daily zone. But we also have the 4-hour demand zone, which also coincides with the weekly fair value gap, which I would like to see cleared before price reverses and starts pushing to the upside. This was also a flip zone when we broke the last high on the recent push up, giving more reasons why this could be a strong area where we may see a reversal from. But as with Dixie, I'll be looking for shifts anywhere within this daily demand zone, because this is a 4-hour demand range. Anything here, I'll probably start trying to enter trades with more of a swing trade idea in mind to hold at least back into the supply and potentially to break the highs. So overall, in terms of bias, well, short term, I'm expecting EU to come back down. I mean, it needs to come back down and mitigate some of the inefficiencies that were created on that last push up. But long term, we're seeing more and more signs of a bigger reversal that could be in play. Fundamentally, it aligns as well, which is really shifting my higher time frame bias from bearish to bullish. It's not to say that we can't come down and break this demand level, and even the lows, because like I said, historically, every big reversal, we've seen those type of manipulations where it just comes down and manipulates the entire range before the reversal actually happens. Well, it shows signs of reversal first, then manipulates the entire range, and then actually reverses. So maybe that's already happened here. Maybe we've already had that manipulation, and it just comes down and mitigates and then reverses from there. But at the same time, it could come down and manipulate the entire range one last time before reversing and seeing a real reversal. Assuming the signs that at least I'm seeing are accurate, and we do have a bigger shift, a pullback or reversal in play. So anyways, that sums up this weekend's analysis. Hopefully you guys found it useful. It would be really nice to hear your thoughts on the markets, which you can do by commenting below. And as mentioned before, I don't think I'm ready to start doing regular videos anytime soon, but I will try to start by posting. Sorry, my mouse just went out. Okay, it's back. Looks like the battery died. So anyways, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to start doing regular videos anytime soon, but I will try to start by posting weekend videos again. At least I can give a higher time frame view of what's happening in the markets. I'm also staying away from my Instagram account and any other socials, but I do check up in Discord from time to time. So if anyone needs to reach me, I can still be reached in Discord. But anyways, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and good luck trading next week. Peace.
Hey, you made it to the very end. Thanks for that. If you could do me one more favor and click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, it'll allow the YouTube algos to kick in and help this channel grow. Thanks again. Cheers.